Welcome to the Navigating Magic podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, ethereal consciousness, and everything in between. I teach beings how to generate change through their attention to energies, truths, and processes that are invisible to others. I'm your host, Natasha Andreo. Hello to my beautiful listeners, and thank you so much for being here. In this episode, I'm going to take you on a deep dive into my journey about how I got started with animal communication. And my intention is to bring a little bit of awareness into how our beautiful fur babies bring so much enrichment, love, and joy into our lives. And the connection is actually beyond what we can see and feel in our lives. Now, if you've been following me for a while or you follow me on social media, you're probably a little bit aware, if I haven't made it that obvious, that my rabbits are my world. Now, before I even get into how I got started with animal communication, I'll take you back because I actually met my beautiful husband, Nick. Hi, Nick, through our rabbits. Believe it or not, our rabbits played Cupid in our love story, and maybe that's an episode for another day. Let me know if you want to hear how that all came about. And so obviously having our rabbits, them playing Cupid in our lives, it really has impacted the way that we live and I guess show up in this world, because we've gotten a bit of an identity that, the rabbits, they're the rabbit couple, or Nick and Tash have rabbits. And so it's just become a big part of who we are, and our values are, I guess, aligned to rescuing pets. Now, we had 3 rabbits in 2020. And the lockdown started. So the lockdowns aren't so bad when you've got pets. I mean, we all saw so many families adopt and rescue puppies and cats and rabbits and birds and everything in between. And it became a thing because obviously we're spending so much more time home. Now, when I had my rabbits, they were free roam. We were living in a beautiful little apartment, and our rabbits were free roam in the living room. And unfortunately, Suri, who was Nick's original rabbit, she got very sick in the June or the end of May of 2020, which was, I guess, 2 months into the lockdown. And we actually never knew how old Suri was, but Nick had had her for at least 8 years. So she could have been a year old when he adopted her, when he rescued her. We're honestly not sure. She could have been older. And when she got sick, we were very hopeful that she would get better. But the thing is, rabbits are extremely vulnerable. They're so shy. They are not shy. They are extremely vulnerable and very perceptive to getting sick very quickly because they're animals of prey. They don't really show their illness. So you really need to pick up on their mannerisms and behavior. And so when we noticed that Suri, I guess she was drooling and she wasn't eating her normal food, but she would love banana. Now, looking back now, obviously, the banana being soft versus all the other food and hay and grass and greens, she really needed to use her teeth. So her teeth were actually, she had dental disease, unfortunately, which is common in older rabbits. And that's why feeding them hay and making hay, 80% of their diet is so important. So we went through with a risky operation to try and gnaw down her teeth, and she survived the operation. That was on the Friday. However, the following week, it was actually on the Tuesday night, we noticed that she started to get better, and we were so hopeful. And then the following morning, we noticed that overnight she didn't eat any of her food. And it was, I just can't explain what happened that day. Now, when I woke up that day before taking her to the vet, the song, like our animals are always communicating to us, but if we don't know how to do this, if we have forgotten, if we are so distracted by the outside world, then we're not aware and in tune to the messages and signals that they're sending us. But what I vividly remember about that morning was Suri, she hadn't eaten overnight, and we actually kept her in our bedroom because we needed her to have her own space away from the other bunnies, and that was Romeo and Rafi at the time. And what happened was Sooty didn't eat her food overnight. And so I woke up and I knew something wasn't right. There was a song replaying over and over in my head, and it was Shania Twain's song From This Moment. Now, From This Moment is, for me, it's a positive song. It's a love song. I know people who've had that song played at their wedding. However, for me, that song resonated with From This Moment, things are going to be very different. And I guess looking back now, I'm going to get a bit emotional. It was her telling me that from this moment, things aren't going to be the same. And so I didn't tell Nick what I was feeling. I just kept it to myself because I guess I was scared and I didn't want to bring this to life. And at that time, I was on this big deep dive, a spiritual journey, and I didn't want to attract negative things and whatnot. And so we were playing high frequency music and we were repeating affirmations and we were doing all the things. On the way to the vet, because we were feeding her, syringe feeding her, like her cheeks and around her mouth and jaw were quite dirty. Now, I remember like it was almost as if Sooty was telling me, can you clean me up? I don't want to look like this when I go. And I remember thinking that, and I thought it was my voice, my thoughts. And I'm like, stop it. And I told myself, stop thinking this. But looking back now, I also understand that it was Sooty actually telling me. She knew, because animals know you so well. And there was a reason that I guess she was telling me and not Nick. He was driving, I was sitting in the back seat and just holding her in my arms. It just felt like it was going to be the last time I'd be holding her. So we took her to the vet, and at the time, because of all the stupid and silly COVID restrictions, we couldn't go into the vet consult room. They would actually come downstairs, pick up the pet from the car park. It just felt so wrong on so many levels. And then they said, go home, we will call you when we have more information. And obviously, we don't want to leave our baby behind. She's our world. We want to know. And so we were not in a high vibrational state. We were just beside ourselves. We were lost. We were scared. And we just wanted her healthy again. So in an attempt to lift up our spirits, Nick took us to the dog park at Newtown. And when we got there, we were ordering coffee from the cafe. And I remember the song, playing through the speakers, Isn't She Lovely? Now, again, that was me, like Sooty sending me a sign that, yes, you are lovely and you've made our life lovely and so much more. It was very assuring. And so we went home to our other bunnies, and it was, we were just so broken, so sleep deprived, so scared again. And so we decided to go to sleep. And then at 3 o'clock, the phone rings, and I had woken up a minute before the phone rang. And as I woke up, I had like dreamt about Sooty, and she was telling me something. And then I think I forced myself to wake up, and I still can't. I know that she did have a message for me, but I think I have blocked it out. And so as we woke up, the phone rang and the vet let us know that she died of heart failure. Basically, her heart could no longer take it. They tried to resuscitate her, and unfortunately, she had gone. And it was so hard hearing that news because it was just so sudden, so unexpected. And at the same time, we didn't know how the other bunnies were going to cope without Sooty. Now, I am the type of person where I probably am more comfortable and it's easier for me to get distracted. So the few days that followed, I was immersing myself in work because that was my coping mechanism. However, Nick became, we all deal with grief very differently, and there is no right way to deal with grief. Grief, it comes in many shapes, sizes, and colors. And so Nick wasn't coping as well with the grief. Now, I have always been, you know, a spiritual person. And so I understood that the spirit lives on and that this wasn't the end, that Sudi was always mine. However, Nick was trying to fathom and he was trying to make sense of everything. And there was a lot of, you know, going back and we should have done this, we should have done that. And it wasn't helping the situation. I started to have dreams about Sudi almost immediately. And each time, now I'm always trying to get messages from my dreams. I like to see it as one of my gifts, and I love sharing this with people. However, Nick, the more he tried, the more he struggled. And so he went online to try and find tips and messages, and he started watching videos on YouTube about how to get your animal to send you messages in your dreams, or come to you in your dreams, or how to get your animal to send you messages. And so we listened to a couple videos, and one day it worked. It was very soon after watching the video, and we thought, oh, this is cool. Let's do some more. And so the more we did the videos, you know, we would have signs like the song playing at the cafe. I would hear it when I would ask Sudi for a sign, or someone would mention the song. At the time I was working at a school, and like a student would mention the song, or it would play on the radio randomly. And so for me, that was just affirming that she's still around us. So it wasn't even 10, it was actually 10 days, it might have even been 8 days after she passed, we decided to have an animal communication reading. And so we liked one particular lady on YouTube. Her name's Danielle McKinnon. And although she doesn't do readings, she actually trains people up. So we resonated with one, like we almost like clicked on the website, went through a few of the profiles, and there was one that just really stood out to us. And her name was Anna Marie. Now, Anna Marie has been a guest on my podcast a few times, so you're going to have to listen to those episodes as well. And so when we connected with Anna Marie, we didn't know what to expect. We had never done anything like this before. And I guess when you're vulnerable, when you're lost, when you're scared, when you're grieving, you want someone to tell you that it's okay. And so we connected with Anna Marie. Now, what came up in that reading was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, there's no way the information that came through that she could have guessed or that she could have known, you know, through stalking us online or anything like that. Sudi had these distinct messages for us that were just so specific and so detailed. And there was this acknowledgement of the difference between Nick and I. And at the time, we were literally dealing with this in such a stark different way. And there was this assurance that Sudi was communicating with Rafi and Romy, who was still around, because they started to behave differently because of the grief in the home. And so we finished that reading, and we just couldn't stop crying. It was just so special, so, so invaluable. And then we went off to work because of the time difference. Anna Marie's in the US. We had it at something like 6 a.m. And so we went off to work. And I remember Nick was in the studio producing his album, and I went to school. And we're one of those crazy couples who have a pet camera. And we turn it on anytime we leave the house, like even if we're going to duck out to the shops for like 10 minutes, the camera's on, because it's our safety net. You know, everyone has their wacky traits and habits. This is one of ours. And so when Nick hopped on the camera, not soon after he arrived at the studio, he noticed something distinct, something that you just cannot make up, and it blew our minds. He sent me 2 screenshots. He asked me, "What do you see in this photo?" I remember arriving at school, looking at my phone, and I gasped for air. I couldn't breathe from what I saw. Now, Sudi was our beautiful black bunny, and she would have this distinct pose. She looked like a sphinx. Imagine a sphinx, but a bunny sphinx. So she would sit with her paws right in front of her, and her paws would be right out here. And she it was just her pose. No other bunny did that. It was her distinct pose. And we just knew that this is her way of being comfortable. She was probably asleep when she did it. And we had a few photos of her in that pose. Now, what Nick sent me was a screenshot from our pet camera. However, it was in the exact silhouette. There was a light, a shadow, in the exact pose that Sooty would do at home. And we were blown away. Now, what came up in the reading was that Sooty, yes, she crossed over, her spirit has left her body. However, she still hasn't fully immersed herself into the other side, onto, the Rainbow Bridge, because we were still holding on to her. And in the reading, Sooty had asked us to please let her go. And it was the hardest thing to hear, and at the same time it was the most liberating thing to hear, because by letting her go we were actually freeing ourselves. And it was almost as if she needed to come through in the light, through the camera, in order to give us permission to let her go. And it was our assurance that she was always going to be with us. And so it just changed our world. It changed the way we look at things. We obviously, being human, we try to make sense of things, and our ego needs orientation. We need to know how things are and how did it happen and whatnot. And I'm sure that you've got experiences and encounters when your pet, or even a human that you've lost, they've sent you signs. They use technology. They use other animals, they use nature in order to send these signs. And so after this experience, we just had this renewed sense of self, this renewed perspective on life. And it was almost as if it helped accelerate the grieving process. That's one thing I did see in myself and in Nick especially. Now, we then became obsessed with wanting to know more, like having a light photo of Sooty. It meant everything to us, but we wanted more. Call us selfish, but come on, if your pet is sending you something so distinct, wouldn't you want more? And so we kept watching more animal communication videos online. And the more we watched, the more we were like hooked on them. And then we decided together to do a course on animal communication. And so Nick and I would sit down. It was like a 6-week course, and we tried it out. And again, it was like a very intro, basic animal communication course. And it was like really cool. It was like, oh, okay, yep. And we connected with a sloth. We connected with a dog. I think there was even an elephant in the first class. And it was just like, oh, this is cool. And after the 101 class, basically, we decided that it would be nice if we continued this as a way for us to learn how to communicate with our bunny rabbits. And so we did 101 together, and then I did Animal Communication 102 on my own. And doing 102, you end up having these homework partners. And part of these homework partners, you need to have live calls with the other person. And obviously there could be anywhere in the world, and you would connect with their pet. And so whenever you're learning something new, it's not good enough just to, listen and watch or read the information. You really need to immerse yourself into the world of whatever it is that you're learning on the topic and the themes, because immersion does get you the best experience possible. And so my first homework partner was someone from Malaysia, and she had coincidentally a rabbit as well. And I connected with her rabbit, and I told her things about her rabbit that there's no way I could have guessed. And I was like, this is going to sound really bizarre, but I know those of you in the intuitive world would know and would probably resonate. It felt like I was making it up. That's the only way I can describe it. Now, everyone receives information differently. And believe it or not, everyone is intuitive. If someone has ever told you you're not intuitive, punch them. No, I don't condone violence. Just it's not right to say that, because we're actually born with this innate ability. Young children are so intuitive, but we diss their ability. And so we need to come back to this remembering. And there are some that are, what we call more intuitive than others, but they're not necessarily on a scale of, 1 to 10. It's just because they have practiced more and they're allowing themselves to attune to their gifts. And so, when someone is receiving information, like through an animal communication reading, it can come through various ways. You can receive see words, you can see symbols and images, you can hear things, you can have a feeling, you can have a taste in your mouth. There are, just have a look at the clair senses. That's one way to help get your, have a better understanding of how you can receive the information. Every week there'd be more homework partners. And so I connected with people from Canada. I connected from a lady in France, and I connected with her dog, which I will just never forget. I had a lady in Switzerland, and she had a horse that I was connecting with. And I was spot on. And I was getting this information. And not only was the information accurate, it was actually helping the recipient on the other side of the phone with some things that on some level it was healing what was missing. There was a disconnection happening in their life. And so it was bringing a sense of equilibrium and balance back into their world. And so I was telling Nick after these calls, guess what happened? Guess what happened? And he was just blown away. Now, Nick is one of those people, probably like most guys, that is skeptical. He's like, you looked that up. You looked up their page. You stalked them. I was like, no. How do you stalk something about like a dog that's passed away or a horse on the other side and get specific information like the horse would rub its cheek on her hand? That's a little bit specific. I can't even remember some of the other things because I force myself to forget, so I don't actually carry that energy with me. And so after a while, Nick said, okay, connect with my cat, Chucky. Now, Nick had a cat when he was younger, into his early days of high school. And all I knew was that Chucky was a cat and he was black and white. And he looked like a bit of a Sylvester cat. And I didn't have any other information about the cat. And so I grounded myself. We learned a lot of grounding techniques because if I'm not grounded before a reading, I cannot connect. I set some intentions and then I got into the reading. And the first thing that happened with Chucky was he told me that he disappeared for a while and he showed me the number 3. And so I had no idea what that meant. And so I relayed that information back onto Nick, and he said, yes, Chucky did go missing for 3 months. We thought someone took him. We thought he died. We thought, the worst. And then one day his mum gets a call from the local vet saying, we've got your cat. Someone's, surrendered him here. We've microchipped him and here he is. Come pick him up. And so this incident with the cat I had been with Nick for about 2 years at this point. It had never come up in conversation or anything like that. So it was not me remembering something that had happened. And so the cat mentioned that he left because there was another house that had another cat and their owner would feed them better food. And so he would go for the food. However, he ended up impregnating the cat. And then he stayed around for a little while to look after the kids. And then somehow he was captured and then surrendered into the vet. And that was just new information for Nick and his family. The other thing that Chucky mentioned was that he would watch Nick come home and he would sit on top of the bin. Wherever you're listening to this, in Australia, we've got like bins with red lids on them. And Chucky mentioned that he would climb up on the fence, land on the red bin, and watch Nick come home. And Nick said every single day coming home from high school, he would walk down the driveway, and he had a very long driveway, and Chucky would be waiting for him on the red bin. And then Nick would pick him up and they would walk inside together. And so that was a beautiful confirmation for Nick. It's like, again, it's a very specific detail. And so I guess having Nick believe in me at the time, it really helped me. Now, a couple of years later, there's no way that I would need another person to believe in me in order for me to believe in me, if that makes sense. And that's something that it takes some practice and getting used to, but that's the phase of my life that I'm at right now. And so it was really important for me to receive affirmation and confirmation. And so after having so much success with my practice calls and I started reading for a few friends here and there just to build up my skills, it was time to decide, do you want to do the business side of this and learn how to attract clients and how to do all the things. And so I did, and we had to do a test. It was and it was really intimidating because there was this big build up. You would have someone, and again, this is all done in the States, and so someone would be listening in to your call with someone that you're reading for, and they're literally judging you on everything from start to finish. And I remember not feeling nervous for this. And it wasn't because I knew it was going to work out. I think because I was so confident in myself that I didn't need to feel nervous. I was just focusing on finalizing, finishing this with high grades and succeeding at this and putting myself out there into the world. And so I had the reading, and it was an amazing reading, very successful. Reading for complete strangers is just, sometimes I prefer it, to be honest with you, than reading for people I know, because I really, really need to train my mind not to give me information, because I'm not actually using my mind for the information. When I connect with an animal, I am connecting with their spirit, with their source. We are all connected through all time and space. And that means that just because someone leaves the physical world, it does not mean that the story ends there, and that the relationship and the connection, more importantly, ends there. And so in 2021, I put myself out there, and it was a scary thing to do. I've been judged by people. I get funny looks. What do you mean you're an animal communicator? You talk to animals? Do you need to see their photo? Do they need to be alive? Do they need to be with me? And the answer is yes and no to, whatever the question may be. But your animal does not need to be with you. They can be alive or passed on. I do not need to see a photo, and I never do. It's only, I guess, after a reading, when a client is, replying to an email or sending me thanks, that they are sending me a photo of their fur baby, which is always nice to see. And so I have been building up my skills over the last 2 years now, successfully, and I've had incredible readings with the most amazing people. And the unique thing about my work in animal communication is it's not 3D animal communication. So while it's important to know things like what the animal, their food that they like, or the foods that they want, or the, where they sleep, or their environment, the work that I do is actually soul level animal communication. And so with this, we actually delve deep into what is the soul contract between yourself and the animal, which I'm going to spin it this way. Before you were born, before you incarnated here on earth, you and your animal met up in the ether, and you signed a contract. You made an agreement that they're going to help you learn X, Y, Z. So we have soul lessons, and soul lessons can range. There's a variety, like a vast array. Your animal could be teaching you how to love yourself more, or your animal can be teaching you how to, put yourself out there, or how to be free, or how to feel worthy, how to overcome your limiting beliefs. Whatever it may be, there's an agreement, and there's a specific agreement. And what happens is your animals then show you through their behavior what it is that you need to learn. And next week's episode, I'm actually going to release an animal communication reading that we had only 3 months ago with Anna Marie, again, after our fur baby Romeo passed away in March of this year. And in that reading, you'll get to witness a live call and see how Romeo was giving us information about our lives together, and what he needs from us in order for us to get out of our own way, if that makes sense. This is really deep work, because I just love how people come to me because they'll say things like, my cat is being irritable, or the dog started peeing inside, or there's a change of behavior, the dog's peeing on the bed. Can you help me find out what's going on? Or it could be the dog or the cat or their pet has just stopped eating. The vets have been trying to figure out what's wrong. And while I don't diagnose in a reading, I can provide you with information. I'm going to tune in and look at things from the animal's perspective. And so while people come to me looking for answers for their pet, what they end up walking away from is, and realizing really, is what is their animal doing for them? What is the animal trying to teach them? Because your animals are always mirroring your actions, your energy, your behavior. They're inspiring the desired behavior that you want, or they're reflecting what's happening with you out into the world. And so we need to decipher exactly what's happening here in order to get to the bottom of it. Because in our world today, we all know, hopefully, how important getting to the root cause of something is, how important it is. And so your animals are here for that. And so we have many healing modalities through this process. And I consider it an honor and an absolute privilege to connect with people's pets. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I guess it takes my clients sometimes some time to process some of the information that comes through, because of the relevance and the depth of meaning that your animals are trying to give you. I could easily do a second episode on this, because I've got some encounters and experiences that I've had with clients where the messages from the cat, from the animal, the cat, the dog, the horse, the lizard, the bird, the rabbit, the message that they have is so it shatters your perception of the world around you. And so, whether your animal is alive or not, either way, they're here to serve you. Okay. And that's one thing that we need to understand. The animal we think we're helping them, we're saving them, we're rescuing them, but and I'm speaking from so much experience here, your animals are actually the ones rescuing you. And you know that, because they are so perceptive to your emotions and your needs that you don't need to speak their language. They just know. And so in the next, throughout this podcast, I might share some snippets of how I have been able to connect with our rabbits, give them signals and communicate with them, and share along the way how they have changed our life. If you want to hear about our wedding story and the rabbits, please let me know, because it's another beautiful story that I would love to share with you. And I really thank you for listening and tuning in. If you learned something new, or if you have any questions, please do reach out. I always love connecting with people who prioritize their pets. Sometimes it's more fun hanging out with animals than it is with humans. I jest, but I think you get the underlying tone here. So thank you so much. I would also appreciate if you shared this episode with anyone who might find this valuable. If they're looking for answers with their pets, or if you want more information, I'm available on socials at natasha.andreo. Thank you so much, and give your fur babies some extra love tonight. Thank you. Wherever you're listening from, if you can give us a review and a 5-star rating, that would be so helpful in supporting this podcast. If this episode lights you up and inspires you, then please make sure that you share this podcast, and make sure that you tag me on Instagram. I am beyond grateful and so blessed to call this work. It just means so much. Together we will learn and grow. Staying anchored in your heart means staying anchored to your humanity. All my love, Natasha.